This again is another Dharma text we're kind of going through in the group. And it seems to take on the vibe of a talk. It seems pretty clear that it's Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche giving a talk. And then Lama Eric Pema Kunsang is translating, and at some point they transcribed and edited, right? So people like Lama Eric are kind of heroes when they are able to capture some of this Dharma. Many Dharma teachers, they don't really like to write books. I feel like I can understand that. It seems like a long time to deal with contrivance. You're writing the book and it's not tailored to a specific audience. I mean, it is your book audience, but Dharma is even more nuanced than that. Dharma actually is tailored to the person, maybe small groups at the most. So that's why the teachers have always been kind of a necessary part of the path, because they can talk to you and see where your mind is at, probably because they've been there, right? So that's the wonderful part about a guide, is that they're a little bit deeper into the mind science, and they can help us understand things that we may go through, things that are happening now, and give us a huge advantage. And so in Tibet and many yogic traditions across the world, these people have done the science. They've gone into their minds, understood their minds, found peace there, peace and awakening. To me, these are heroes. This world is so easy right now to kind of get wrapped up in it, and shiny things, and war, and all kinds of desires. So to turn back and look at your own mind in the midst of that, to me, is amazing. So I cherish all the Mo Sangha who's practicing this path of Dzogchen. And then also the new YouTube Sangha who's been commenting and supporting, helping keep this group alive. It's kind of tough to keep it real in these times that we're living in, and get the word out, right? For example, we're not very superficial. We don't have master classes and programs and fancy websites that guide you through a course. Excuse me. All those can be wonderful for a lot of people. I'm sure they're helpful. But here it's more about the Dharma than it is about the institution or the finances and things like that. Although I must say, from time to time, I do struggle to get things that I need. So if you ever feel it in your heart, it's fine to give a gift, but don't prioritize that, and don't think that it gives you anything when you give gifts to a statue, to a sangha, to teachers, to temples, monasteries. We cannot expect, like, oh, I gave this gift, now I deserve something in return. You already got the Dharma as a gift in return. But it should be more like the practice takes precedent. I'm only saying this because I've grown up around temples where they have these things called sponsors. And in Vajrayana, the sponsors, when you make a financial connection with the Sangha, it's very auspicious and special and all that. In the Asian cultures, that's quite popular, actually, much more than we might see in Americas. But still, I've seen folks, these sponsors, they completely abandon their practice. To me, I'm sorry, I can't make that justification. If I was ever to get a sponsor, I'd want them to practice. Before you sponsor me, let me see your practice. That's an absolute prerequisite. You can't just be throwing money. That's the equivalent of a parent who never gives their kid love. They just throw money at the kid. No, I don't have time to take a walk with you, but I'll pay this strange caretaker to take a walk with you, okay? And then we'll buy you a bicycle. So next time you guys can go ride a bike together. Yeah, money. Just throwing money at it. And don't let me cast doubt. I'm sure there's some love in that. They want the person to be okay and they support them materially, which is great. But I feel like the love should be there too. Okay? I've never had kids. I've never even really been a kid. So I don't have much experience in this. But with the Dharma, I can say it seems ridiculous that people make offerings and don't practice. Mhm. All right, so getting back to the text here, it says, right now, my visual experience is unblocked, unobstructed. It occurs through the eyes. I can see every face individually. None are mixed together. Each is distinct and clear. I don't attach words to whatever I'm seeing or fixate on any of the details. The field of experience is unblocked and vividly clear. Similarly, the moment you recognize mind essence or nature, there's a sense of being wide awake. Okay, so those of you who are actually getting to the Dzogchen part, Dzogchen proper, we could say, I hope you can connect with this wakefulness. I think you are. Some of you, I've seen it. I've seen a change from your meditation to kind of dredge down to, ooh, I'm awake. And believe me, that in the past couple weeks, I've seen a lot of that, and it's so cool to see somebody all of a sudden awake. And you can see it in their body, hear it in their voice, in their stories that they're sharing. By the way, it is like a light bulb has been switched on inside you. So the field of experience is unblocked and vividly clear. Yeah. And so the moment you recognize mind essence, and that's why people have a little aha moment. There's a little, oh yeah, but then they go back to the sleepiness pretty quick usually. Unless you have many years of experience, you've done a lot of Nundro, stuff like that, then you're going to have a lot easier time in Dzogchen. But for those people who really want to be free in their mind, Dzogchen's available to you. It just takes a little bit more diligence and trust than maybe if you had that preliminary experience. So when not fixating on what is experienced, experience in itself doesn't harm anything. Fixating means to attach concepts to each detail. This is this, that is that, and so forth. Here's a quote from Longchenpa's Dharmadhatu Kosha. When sentient beings look away from themselves, everything seems solid and concrete. When the yogi recognizes the utterly free state of Rigpa, they know that it is open like space, and the appearances of this world are a marvelous show. Yeah, and I've seen that in my experience, amazingly enough, to start to see this as a kind of luminosity or have the experience of luminosity. You're not seeing it as, seeing itself becomes luminosity in that sense. This is a great threshold to cross into. I invite you all to explore the possibility of traversing into this space like luminosity. But there seems to be a small willingness in us sometimes to choose samsara, to choose our suffering. A lot of times we sabotage our Dharma path. We make stories about the Dharma, why it's bullcrap, or we have problems with the Sangha and why they're not enlightened enough, or the teacher is they said some word that you don't like and they rubbed you the wrong way, so now you abandon the whole path. You know, these things too happen. In this group, for example, I try to be sensitive to everybody, and I invite the whole sangha to do that. Be sensitive of the tones and the language we use, because there are new people that get pushed away, and sometimes it's fine. It's totally great. They need to be somewhere else. They're not really in a place for Dzogchen yet. But other times, those people could have gotten into Dzogchen, and maybe they got scared away. So I like to keep it peaceful. I don't feel any inclinations towards anything else, and I invite everybody. If we can all be friends, it's really powerful like that in supporting Dzogchen. And people in this group tend to be radically compassionate and forgiving too. I feel like that really helps a Dzogchen practitioner traverse a very radical kind of path. This is a radical path. Just last session, we were talking about how it's beyond good and bad, beyond misery and contentment. Most folks aren't going to be ready to chew on that. So appearances all seem to be real, but actually they have no reality, just like a mirage, a reflection, a rainbow. You may know about certain psychedelic drugs. What happens when you see hallucinations? If you want to know exactly what the nature of experience is, ask a drug taker. I've heard them called a lot of things, but ask a drug taker. Oh, Tulku, you didn't know this, but everybody has become drug takers, at least in America, and I'm pretty sure it's going around the whole globe. Prescription drugs are the new thing. Everybody is a drug taker now. Even your granny. Granny and grandpa, they're on the hard stuff. Drug. So once the effect of the drug wears off, where are the hallucinations? It is like that. Everything is like that. It's exactly like right now. So I subscribe to the fact that we're hallucinating right now. It's a functional hallucination. It's useful, but it's something to keep in mind. It can be quite limiting, reductive, and confusing too. If we weren't hallucinating right now, imagine being on acid or something. You'd barely be able to walk around. You'd be acting probably abnormally and scaring people, maybe even. Um, so the illusion is kind of helpful. Dundrup, I think that's a safe. Dundrup asking, is he saying that in Dzogchen we see everything as hallucination? It's not really a belief, but this ends up happening. Very much like if you're playing a video game, video games, I think you can relate to that. um, you start to see the programming. That was my problem, why I couldn't enjoy video games, because I knew too much about the programming, probably. I knew that, the way it was set up, that how the controllers work with the math to create what's on screen, the sprites and how they behaved and everything. And especially at first, like if you look at Nintendo, it's just a streaming environment, it's just moving environment going like this. It's, uh, if you hit something, then you die. It's programming. So to me, I started to see all that code behind the game. So the game was still kind of fun, but it's very much like film producers and directors and actors. It's hard for them to watch a movie without seeing all the extra nuances. So just like that, you will actually see how pixels are created, why your character in the game acted, why they died, why they didn't die, how the next level is more nuanced. Tetris is great if you ever want to just understand how Tetris, how we get caught up in programming. It can be fun, but you're still sitting there essentially banging your head against the wall. You're not really doing anything. You're in a loop. You're in a programming loop. So to me, in reality, you can start to see the code. And maybe that's where the Matrix got it from. They're heavily influenced by the Dharma in the Matrix movies. At least the first one, I know for sure. So you can see the code for sure behind your screen, behind your images that you're constructing. But like I said, these images are very useful. So it's, do you really want your whole world to melt into a kind of rainbow? Probably not. You'd be talking to your loved ones and saying, all I hear right now is rainbow sounds, and your lips are melting. And and your loved one would say, what? So the same is, this is like a stabilized, slow release acid trip, Dzogchen, where you start to get used to people's lips melting. And it's fine. But they're not melting. Like, let's see if I can give an example. Um, I feel like I'm treading into very tricky territory here. I'm not bragging by any means, okay? I'm just trying to kind of give an example of the territory we're visiting here. If you look at a person, I feel like you can see beyond their skin. You can see their consciousness, and what we normally solidify as eyes, nose, lips, and everything, it doesn't get solidified. It's much more fluid and luminous and dynamic at that point. So it's also harder to get dredged down in our reductive reasoning, like, oh, this person is a bum, you know, judged by their looks or something like that. No, you look, there's revelation and luminosity even in what we consider dirt. So is he saying is it like being on psychedelics except totally sober? Yeah, but there's a feeling in your body it's not really a soberness, I would think. We could not really call that. There's samsaric sobriety, right? Where you're kind of stuck in samsara and you're very conformed to it. But sometimes you can see people really just step out of that box. And so, and they might not even be on drugs. And they're acting like they're on something, but really they're off something. They're off of samsara. It's the most beautiful when you can see just nature and the animals and even yourself. It's not so solid and not so constructed. It's a kind of difficult terrain to navigate linguistically and conceptually, so maybe I should back off a little bit. That's the best I can do. Everybody, you can trust your awareness and pure presence and normalize magic. That's the best advice I can give. Don't hear it from me, hear it from your own mind. All I can tell you confidently as your friend is that this reality is not what it seems. And I'm not the only one telling you that. There are scientists telling you that now, physicists. Okay? So, in his writings, Longchenpa often mentions that all these experiences, whatever we perceive, seem like they are here. They seem real, but actually they aren't. Sentient beings hold the strong belief that things are real. Last night, you probably had all sorts of different dreams. Where exactly did the dreams go the moment you woke up? Where are they right now? Where do dreams come from? And exactly where do they go? Find out where your dreams go. Find out whether they are real or whether they are illusory. All the different kinds of daytime experiences are displays of mind. They are made by mind. Yeah, so if you're going to go into this path, that last sentence right there is pretty potent. Um, to me, this path is the most accurate, but you have to decide for yourself, are you ready for something like that? All these different daytime experiences are displays of mind. So we may ask ourselves, well, what about something historical? Like if I see an ancient book that was here before I was even in this world, well, it takes all your constructs and all your historicity there um, to construct that book. And it's a collective construction from other people. Lots of other people have created this illusion together with you. Even to have, even the dinosaurs and the tardigrades and all these creatures have taken part and left their traces in this collective. You see? Now, this is high level stuff because you can't just tell somebody that everything's mind made. They might go crazy with that. They might get very irresponsible with that. So again, it assumes a lot of maturity in Dzogchen, or at least authenticity. And we don't need to get reckless with the Dharma, right? So this is why miracles are possible. When the display of deluded mind vanishes at the moment of enlightenment, one realizes that ordinary appearances are merely illusion. By the way, I'm going to tell another personal story anecdote here. When I was little, I totally believed in Santa for a little while there. And I swear I saw Santa up in the sky with the reindeers and everything. I know this sounds crazy, but he was there as real as could be. And if it was an illusion I was having as a 10-year-old, wow, what an illusion that was. I think I was like 7 or 8. What an illusion. And I wonder how I contrived that illusion. But the fact is, the more I started conforming to what we consider reality, and if you don't consider reality, you're going to get beat up type of approach. Um, the more I started conforming to this punk ass reality, the less magic I started seeing, and the more constructed and rigid. Why? We don't want that, do we? I'm not saying you can see Santa, but you can see all types of. There's more to this life. Another one was the puppy that I had to put down because he was so sick and suffering so much. His body was there, but his spirit was just dancing around the grave, dancing around this rock that was there where I was going to bury him. After I had to shoot him. He was suffering very badly, so I put him down right here. His name was Scrappy Doo. That's Tank and Dorje's little brother. He looks a lot like Tank, except he was a tiny little puppy. And he had such bad seizures that eventually, oh God, it was very, very terrible suffering. And so I brought him out there, and I felt like angels were carrying me through the whole thing. Like my mind wasn't even nearly grounded into this body. I was just, I had a lot of support during that time from somewhere. And then I feel like I saw him still. And this is treading into some abstract ground. I know. Some will follow me there. Some will say no thanks, and that's totally understandable. So the realized yogi is not burned by fire. He can walk on water and traverse solid matter. Now those are going to be a little bit harder, especially if we subscribe to this world super hardcore. If there's even a small little doubt, even a small, I can't walk on water. I can't walk through solid stuff because it's solid. Even just saying, I can't walk through solid stuff is very powerful. And you have this little thing deep inside you that says, it's solid. There's no way I'd ever be able to penetrate that, except by force. So I don't know. I haven't seen anybody walk on water, though. And I haven't seen anybody walk through solid stuff. We're living in degenerate times. We're living in Kali Yuga, so maybe that's the case. I have seen things with pain, extreme handling of pain and not being burnt by fire. I mean, we know about the monk, right? The Vietnamese monk who was one of the first to burn himself while he was just sitting in meditation the whole time. He burnt. And he was doing that out of protest. So, and then people tried to burn themselves after that. Many immolations, self-immolations occurred with the Tibetans, for example. Young Tibetans, 17, 18 years old, would burn themselves to protest Chinese oppression, and they still do it, except they stopped telling anybody about it when it happened. But there is a long list of people who have burnt themselves to death, and I've seen the footage. They were not in meditation. They were running around screaming in pain, and oftentimes they wanted somebody to put the fire out afterwards. So they screwed up. Apparently this has happened also with bridge jumpers. They've immediately regretted it after they've done it. So, be wary. Your mind can trick you. It's very good at tricking you. So an ordinary person like us is certain to get burned by fire. And this ordinary person like us talk, he's a tulku. He's not an ordinary person. He's a realized Dzogchen. So that ordinary person like us talk has lasted for 30 years, and people never think that they can be enlightened because of that talk right there. I've seen it over and over again. We're just ordinary beings. They're the Buddhas. I'm surprised to hear. I think it's Tibetan. In Tibetan, it sounds different than it does in English when they say that. He's probably saying, regular people are certain to get burned by fire, blown away by the wind, and drowned in water. So how does a yogi manage to experience these in a different way? Because Buddha mind doesn't hold on to anything. Appearances can't cause any harm. That is why we are told again and again, don't grasp at anything, don't fixate on anything. Or in Dzogchen context, if you're grasping, noticing is enough. If you're fixating, noticing is enough. To say don't grasp at anything is an impossibility. That's unobtainium. You can't tell somebody don't grasp at anything. They are going to grasp at things. This is another disease within the Dharma that we teachers always tell people don't fixate on it, don't grasp anything, or at least that's how it's translated, it's coming across, and then people end up grasping and they feel bad about themselves. Well, the Tulku told me not to grasp at things, and here I am grasping at things, and I can't stop grasping at things. I can't stop fixating on things. So you end up in this really bad position with your own mind where you beat yourself up, you're not listening to the Dharma, you think all this stuff. That's why my advice is if you see yourself grasping and fixating, noticing is enough. You are going to fixate and grasp. Nobody can tell you, don't fixate. And then you'll just be, oh, don't fixate. Okay, gotcha. Why didn't I think of that? So don't get addicted to crack. I see. So anyway, simply recognize the state of Rigpa and become stable in it. That's the advice right there. He says simply recognize. Yes, it is a simple recognition, but it is not so simple. I've tried to share this precious pure water with so many beings, and I'm very excited to share it. I know it's a true key to liberation, but I've had many beings who just throw it right back at me like, no thanks. I'd rather turn on the screen, whether it's my phone screen, TV screen, or computer screen. Screens are much more, even though I'm on a screen right now. Different screens, though, are more appealing than Dzogchen, being on the screen. And now everybody always on the screens. Actually, it's nice because you can go out in nature and not so many people because they're all on their screens. The screens are within the screen of awareness. Yes, that's true. Very good. Very poetic. But I think our eyes are gonna grow very big like the aliens. I think the aliens are just evolved versions of us, really. Like coming back from the future or something. Their eyes are like this big because they've been staring at the cell phones day in and day out. The virtual reality is gonna be. And then their noses get very small because they don't need the nose anymore or the mouth so much anymore. And then they only have three main fingers for the screens. Okay, just my prediction. I'm not sure if that's true. So Dzogchen training is all about exactly this. Yeah, we could really stay on that line right there and call it a day. Simply recognizing a state of Rigpa. That's what I try to point you guys to awareness all the time. We talk about it all the time. We try to remind each other in this group of it. When we have kind of energetic conversations or even like arguments or heated, it's really good for your awareness practice actually to get in an argument, to feel uncomfortable. To get sick or injured is also going to benefit your practice most of the time if you're deep into the Dzogchen, okay? Because anything that happens to you, you're pulling away. You're not so preoccupied with it anymore, okay? Um, but that becoming, I will finish the rest of the paragraph though. Yeah, sorry. I meant like we can end it there because that's such a good line. We can end all the teachings there. That's I was kind of speaking like that. So Dzogchen training is all about exactly this. Yeah. So once you have that aha moment, very important to stabilize in it, sustain that recognition, however you want to phrase it. Um, then you will be stepping into this ancient dharma in a real way. So the ability to perform miracles doesn't happen by glimpsing the awakened state just once or twice. It happens only when you attain stability in Rigpa, in the essence of mind, or the nature of mind. So that is as well. I hope that motivates you to continue. Don't give this up so easily. Relatively speaking, it happens within a very short time that you can attain stability in Rigpa. Um, but remember that just because you had an aha or oh yeah moment once or twice doesn't mean that you're in the pocket. And I've seen many practitioners connected to this group. Some have some have even sent me money. I remember one guy a long time ago. He sent me $50 or $100 and said, "Thanks for the pointing out instruction." Never saw him again. I was like, "Wow, this is very transient. This is very transactional, and this is not Dzogchen." So of course I had to give the money back. You didn't get anything. How can I take anything if you didn't get anything? I just don't feel right about that. I'll become one of these church hustlers then. You know, it's not about just glimpsing this once or twice, all right? I know most of you in the group probably understand, but maybe somebody on YouTube needs to hear that. If you've had a little aha moment, or if you haven't even recognized awareness, then it's best to have that recognition. It's an actually like somebody pointed you to something that you hadn't seen before. For example, space. Our whole idea of space comes because people study space and they go to outer space and they send rockets through space. Well, if I sit here and I tell you, be aware of space with your eyes open, all of you, just be aware of space. Now you see something that maybe you weren't really paying attention to before. Now you go back to the screen. And the screen, though, is also within space. So now you can recognize space while you're in the screen. And so now because some yogi told you about space, you can't unsee it. Now space is always here with you. But because our mind easily gets bogged down into thoughts and preoccupations, we distract from our recognition of space. So then we come back to the Dharma groups and we get reminded of the space. Yeah, somebody trying to speak there? Oh, what's going on? Ryan, you have become unmuted. All right, so just to finish this here, it happens only when you attain stability in Rigpa. See, that's why a lot of people, when they're at the beginning, they also feel a little lost and they feel a little like, what the heck is happening? Nothing is happening. And but if you stick with it just a little bit more, then you say, oh, okay, I think I understand. So stability in Rigpa is the reason all the great masters of India and Tibet were unable to be harmed by fire, crushed by mountains, or drowned by water. And I do believe that. I believe that they can do anything to your body once your mind is free like that. If I'm going to speak from my personal experience, like my teacher told me to do, uh, I have become much more tolerant to pain. Pain is kind of in another dimension now, so it doesn't really, even my emotional pain, which can seem heavier than physical pain. You know, I've carried a lot of emotional pain around, fear and anxiety, rage, anger, and if there's a practice on this planet that can help me with that, then of course I cherish it. And that's what it's done. This practice has alleviated those sufferings from my mind. And that's why I'm here, sometimes unskillfully here as a guide, but I'm here. And I'm learning every day how to share this practice with people more skillfully and in a way that you will also get that same freedom. And perhaps you don't have to go through the extreme stuff. You know, go through all the learning curves that me and some others had to experience. Okay, so thank you so much for listening, for participating in the Dharma today. I really appreciate everybody and your presence, including little Dharma Nidhi. Dharma Nidhi, she loved the Dharma. So let's see. Dundab asking, I interpreted Jesus facing his crucifixion as like that. He had he had abiding non-dual awareness, so he was not really scared of physical suffering. Oh wow. Yeah, but it's whenever I've thought of that, I feel like it has happened, and not just Jesus. Many people have been put up on those terrible crosses like that. That's the how the Romans did business back then. I always end up like tearing up just because the Romans were so stupid, so ignorant to do that to another being. Not just Jesus, but there were people all around Jesus getting pinned up on that cross too. And now they celebrate this cross everywhere. That would be like us putting an electric chair up on our church, you know? So it's really kind of bad. Um, but I do believe that if he was a yogi and they tried to do that to him, I do think Jesus was a yogi that really did exist. He's still here. His mind's still here. But I think he walked around in a Nirmanakaya body and he was talking about some anti-establishment type stuff, and they pinned him up on a cross in the most horrible way. But if he stayed in pure presence, none of that affected him. He was with God, truly, just like we can be. We can call it God, sure. When you release into pure presence and divinity. Oh, what is this? Oh, see, that's a much better picture of Jesus. Who did that one? I love the colors there, the earthy kind of colors. I don't know. Probably on the back somewhere. I love the earthy tones there. I know it's a little worn, but pretty good painting. Yeah, and whenever I see Jesus off the cross, like there's an ancient religion called the Shangyo. It's the religion of light. It's called, and this this religion of light actually is kind of an amalgamation of Dharma and Jesus and Jesus's teachings, and so basically, they have symbols of Jesus sitting in full lotus with a cross above his head. So to me, this is amazing. I'd rather see Jesus in full lotus like that. And Muhammad also went in the caves and meditated and came out right with the kind of realization. Now, both Jesus and Muhammad, we probably have no clue what they originally taught about because they were immediately co-opted. They immediately took, just like they do now, anything that's popular, they take it and they co-opt it. We saw that with rock, with hip hop, with anything. Our Dharma practice could become popular, and there will be investors trying to buy us out and take the Dharma from us. So this is what happened. The Romans took Christianity and made it what they wanted to, and then also I think there was many people who created Islam outside of Muhammad. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for your participation, your presence, your gift of your practice and being, your support to each other, to the group. Thanks for staying strong and forgiving yourself, forgiving others. Yeah. And coming into this day brand new and fresh.